Okay, hard to believe, but week 13 in this fall 24 semester is upon us. And there's a couple things I want to go over. First, I'm going to go over the work for this week, and then I'm going to tackle a few other topics. First, no need to copy over your code from week 12. We'll actually end up picking that up later. But what you will need to do is code along, and then at some point in here you'll take some notes. So make sure you create that promises MD file, right? And then there's some other content in there I want you to cover, so make sure you get that added in there. So, and then for the coding challenge, what you're going to do is take and implement promises. So where we implemented asynchronous code last week using the timeout, now we're going to actually implement it using promises. And this is really important to do, which is and you're going to hear me come back to a topic kind of related to this, but making sure that you're attempting this before you're reviewing other students' code or the solution itself. Okay, and then I'm going to go past this one. And then for the step 5, this week you're going to do modules, right? Implement modules for the user input and decision to the table render. Okay, so and then make sure all your functions are concise, and generally only do one or two things. Having one large function is not good. You really want to break those up and be more manageable. Now I will talk about this here, so it's a little bit of redundant, but remove your code comments that were there from some of your other ones. Make sure you've tested your functions, and make sure you don't have any errors. And I'm going to talk about this in this week's attendance about the reference to the form, but from here on out, make sure you have that global JS. And many of you, we've been having good conversations in your submissions for these, so I look forward to continuing that. Now, the thing I want to say, and this has happened now a couple times, is if I ask you to explain something in your code or ask you why you did something, you need to be able to answer and if you can't, that tells me and it tells you something, right? I may ask you, hey, why did you do this? Because we've learned a particular practice in this course, and I hope for the most part best practices. So if you're using something outside, I want to know why. Like, did you have a reason for implementing, like, was that thing and the way you implemented it better than what we've seen in course? And if so, just justify it. Like, tell me why. That's really what I'm saying there, okay? So it is really, really important when I ask you a specific thing that I see in your code, and this generally happens in the decision apps, and it happens sometimes in the code discussions, because of course in the code alongs, you're coding along with me. Now, I did today, I'm actually in week 12 today, and I did see some comments because I talked about last week. Now's the time to sign up. So what I want to tell you is that I want you to know on November 18th, if you haven't signed up for a session, I'm just going to go in there and place a 0 into your grade. Now, it doesn't mean you can't do it. You absolutely still can. But I want you to know, because at that point, if you haven't actually gotten on my schedule, I want you to know the impact that has to your grade, which, by the way, you can do this yourself. Canvas has this wonderful feature called What If? So make sure you do that. You can do that between now and maybe that time, just where you'll have an idea of where, based on your current grade, and of course we still have some things to go. And somebody asked me the other day, do we have a final for this class? No, there's not necessarily a final. There'll be some ending work that we do. But in this case, I would consider the technical interview more closely to a final. Okay. Okay, so again, any questions about any of this would be fine. But one of the things I want to talk about that I've seen several times students do is that, on our carbon footprint, I specifically defined a form constant. And I think I could have done it lowercase. I talked about, sometimes, and this is more in Python, that we will uppercase constants that are global. But regardless of that, this is the point of setting it up, is that it points to that form. And then when you want to get the values, then you can just reference the form and whatever the name of the input or drop down or whatever it is, right, dot value. And now I see some of you actually going and putting IDs on input fields and then doing this inside your code again. And the thing I want you to know is the following. Using getElementBy, however you do it, whether it's by ID, by tag, even get query selectors, are actually what we call expensive. Like, it's just too expensive because it takes processing resources. Now, it's nothing you're going to necessarily see, but over time, this is why generally we try to limit the number of times we reference something in the document, because it has to go out and find that. So anytime you do it again, you're just adding more into your code base. So from a best practice standpoint, avoid doing it more than at your global, right? Again, the idea of going back to, step 5 is having the globals where you define that. That way you can have that reference passed around when you need it, and don't go at particular fields. Now, and what I mean by fields is inputs or drop downs and those kinds of things. If you have a specific need to do that, then just tell me why. Like, is there, again, coming back to the I may ask, like, and you'll, at this week, some of you will, in your code, I will be saying, right, why didn't you do this? Rather than for every field do document get element by. And I thought today I'm going to take a little more opportunity to talk about why that's important, because again, it's what we call expensive. Expensive means it takes more resources than really is needed, because with JavaScript, there's so much JavaScript that happens and gets loaded on the client side that anytime we can decrease that, it's a good thing. And this is just better practice. So, your question may be about this, and I hope it is. Like, does that make sense why we only want to define that reference into that form once and then go after particular? That's why we give inputs, drop downs, text, inputs. That's why we give them names. That's how we did it in the carbon footprint, because we want to go after the form dot whatever dot value. Okay, dot whatever we've named it. Okay, so ask me about this. Ask me about any of those, but ask me about something at this point for what I've gone over. All right, have a good one, and I'll talk to you later.